Alice Noir, A Shattered Looking Glass. Case study: Alice Little, Rutledge Asylum. Dr. McCary, PhD. Our young adventurist Alice is a very unique patient of Rutledge Mental Asylum. Her grandmother and mother are the only surviving members of the Little family bloodline. Other than a few occasions in November 1864, she has little or no interest in the real world. The rabbit is her only anchor. Testimony states that Miss Little was reported to have the same dream her entire life, visiting, meeting the same places, people. It's truly remarkable, really. It's my professional opinion. Our patient, B6, would have to undergo a severe trauma, the likes of which I've never seen. As a result of this past trauma, before the fire which took our father and young sister from her, crashed her outer consciousness, locking her in for whatever madness her mind translates. I have prepared a new method that should be considered promising. I have placed in order for costumes and props to invoke a visual stimulus and try to restore Alice's Wonderland back to its original focus. I'm hoping for her mood to return her home. Alice, 26 years old. Her eyes opened. She hated the smell of the hospital produced. And being tied down, Alice couldn't even cover her nose. Don't did Alice began. Alice, were nobody there. The stuffed rabbit lifted itself, climbed on her chest, grabbed her by her patient uniform, and dragged her out the window. Little stumbled behind the now cleanly dressed, dirty, torn up doll rabbit. The train came to the halting stop, steam bellowing out of its exhaust. Realized the door opened by themselves. Tick, Alice gave the man our tickets. Alice looked up. Hey, I don't know you. How, why would the Red Knight, Queen, Lunatic, Pride, Stage be walking on the train? I'm sorry, you must be dreaming. The joke's on you. Tickets. But I have no tickets. No tickets to ride. Alice, the rabbit exasperated. Go back to my house and get those tickets. And while you're at it, fetch my gloves. Alice snorted and stomped, turned off the train to a polishly kept yard in the cleanest Irish home you'll ever seen. There, three lizards busy working around carrying different tools to give the appearance that they're working. Ha, Bill, I found a point brush. She didn't want to bring too much attention to herself, so quietly crawled to the door. It opened onto a nightmare. Dirty spiders infested crumbling home. The small octagon holes in the two gate doors that were in front of her and skewed her perception. There was only hay coming out of everywhere, like a chicken coop. Oi! The wily rabbit a plum yard off the rocker. Who's he think he is in, then? The Easter Bunny? That great screezed as they opened and closed. The gates squeaked as they opened and closed. Alice, wearing a curtain tied around her for a dress, took a good look and hawked the loogie on the wall. Nope, this is what the advertising suggested. The slack-jawed gets. Slack-jawed. This is where letter, lettered blocks, dolls, jokes, and marbles covering the main halls. The dolls were as tattered as the zombie, some walking the same way. They were missing parts and making strange noises. Little, stay, me good form. Land, avoiding any good judgment, charging. Then the mammoth, everything except her and the house, were 12 times their original size. As she were about to enter the dark crease of the basement, she heard a baby crying, coming from upstairs. Alice grabbed the railing and stepped down, causing the stairwell to shatter. As she came closer, the sound of the pots and pans banging thrown ground. Pepper! Do you plan to dive head first? Were you involved? And were you invited? The doctor's voice stung Little right in the head. She turned to find the ... You still alive? Dashing at the Cheshire cat after Image. Damn you, mangy feline. Having her bite your tongue or I'll kill you again. She returned to her trek, the last room down the hall. The cobwebs were ingrainedly everywhere. Some of the doors and walls were broken in, and Little could see strange vials of jars, filled different colors with heads of small things and toys, skulls and bones, gears, noise with chains coming from the distance, almost further than the home could be. In the center of the room was a dollhouse, 2 stories, about 2 feet tall. Alice kneeled down where a dodo bird, wearing a white English wig and an officer's outfit. Hello? Oh, my name's Little. And Alice? Or the Alice, he gestured. Clang, smash, song, Pepper. Nope, sorry, don't recall. That's better you turn back now. No, someone needs to help that baby, she grunted maliciously, turned and opened the dollhouse door and placed her face against it to look inside. Now lying on her belly, Miss Old Lady Pepper flung the pepper all over the kitchen, occasionally snatching the closest thing and throwing it. The Duchess had the baby on a table, and who's crunching over, eating at its stomach? Stop, you devil! The heavy, brazered pale rabbit white Dutch ass, with dark pink circles happily under her eyes. What else should I make it stop crying? Alice looked back to the baby, but instead a pig squealed as it jumped off the table and passed by her face. As she looked back, a bread roller nearly got her in the eye. Ah, you bitch, Alice yelled, lifting herself up so she could reach the house, and grabbed Miss Cook Pepper Shooter. which luckily grew to regular size as she pulled it out. Pepper, crash, slam, boom, slamming the door. You all deserve each other. Standing back up, dusting herself off, and stomped out of the room. The door screeched further and further away, becoming very tiny to her ears. Shaking it off, she began walking down the shrinking hallway. The smaller she got, the darker the persuado became, until she passed out. The tapping of a crow woke Alice up. She found herself in a courtyard. The day was warm, but she found an incredible heat on the chest above the center restraint. Get off me, you mangy feline, struggling to shake the beast off. The Deedle diffuse ran in, held her down, and the nurse injected her with who knows what. Exciting trip. Red washed over her sight. Time was meaningless concept to a patient of Rutledge Asylum Health Facility. 10 years in a coma and 3 twisted between realms. Perhaps it would have been better if she had never returned from her slumber. As a doctor, I'm forced to assume such things. The hospital was in costume with an era, clean and white to decident. All an illusion, of course, for guests and people dropping off their problems away from the common areas. The place was barren. Bland blue paint filled the empty walls. The room only had a bed and a desk with a single chair for therapy session. The Deedles rolled Alice squeakily wheeled bed down the hall to 6B, unlocked it, and put her back in her spot. Alice has had a number of outbursts ever over the 13-year stay, most minor, but Miss Little is too unpredictable to leave unrestrained. She awoke with a fear shook a memory free. No, Papa, I'm so old enough. And besides, it's winter. You'd be a fool to go out. You'd be a fool to go out like this. Oh, her father laughed, putting his hand on her head. So me and your mother are fools, are we? Papa, just remember, if anything happens, ... run, ... to, ... grandma's, ... Alice felt as if she'd just seen her home on fire again. Nothing more than a 13-year-old girl, shaking. She fidgeted around the restraints. The door was cracked somehow. She just needed to get her hands. Ah! She clenched her hands and her hand broke as it got freed. Fire stretched up her arm. She began undoing the other 4 belts. Quietly she walked to the door, peeked out the bar windows, and then, opening, Alice wandered the maze of hallways and corridors. When she finally came to the front desk, where the nurse was napping, Alice rushed out the door. If an alarm were to go off, she wanted to have a running start. The night sky said it was about 3 a.m., but Alice already knew the night has been known to lie, so doesn't put much stock in it. She ran as fast as she could through the dark shadows of trees. and came to an enormous wall, 20 feet tall easy, and not one tree within 10 feet of it. Bark, bark, bark. Dogs that were much faster than I thought, grabbing a large enough rock to fit in the palm of her hand. Bark, bark, bark. They sounded bigger than her. What could she do except wait, scared and alone? She couldn't hear them get louder. She could hear them get louder, the branches breaking under their weight. Then 3 Rottweilers dove out of the trees. Little crashed at the closed beast in the same side of the head and dropped just in time to see the other 2 leaping overhead, biting at her. With a twist, she smashed one in the nose and even knocked a few of the last one's teeth out. Save those beauties. They might be worth something to somebody. The dogs ran away, whelping, but Alice couldn't find who spoke to her. Yeah, thanks, she thought to herself in a little voice. Now the voices in my head are talking to me. Then Battle Voice came into range. Nervously she looked back and forth, fidgeting with her band as she kept up. Then up, she launched the rock at the light. Fidgeting a hand up, looked at the light shattering into darkness. She slid into a bush and waited until the search went silent. Alice ran to the wall and began to dig her way out of hell. It took a better part of 4 hours to breach the hole big enough to climb through. For the first time in 13 years, she stood up on the outside of the prison, free. It wouldn't be long before the sun would appear, making it a lot easier to find her. First, she'll need clothes, and then a horse or a carriage. By mid-morning, as the constable's whistle began blowing, she at least had found a new outfit. She decided to dress like a man, slacks and all. She even tied her hair into a hat. Funny thing was, all the commotion, nobody realized how silly she looked, trying to walk like a man. Everyone else, it just looked like a gimp, a common thing approaching the dawn of the 20th century. Using a barely voice, Little hoped to ride to the edge of town. It wasn't long before she was in the tree line, looking out. So, Alice, a familiar voice hissed and rattled from behind her. You can't hide from me. Alice turned to find the Jabberwocky, decaying carcass standing in her face. The smell was mashed death, smoking past its disgusting snake-like tongue. She scored the creature, seeing the vorpal blade penetrating out of its side, right where she left it a year and a half ago. What happened to the White Queen? Her castle shouldn't have had any trouble watching over this wretch. Patient B6 awoke in a burning sweat. Her head felt heavy. Her eyes couldn't focus on the room was upside down. Turning visuals sent tight cramps down her stomach as bed returned to normal. She could have town chunks. She could have She could have blown chunks until the door locked, clicked. Little pounded the restraints, sending blood back through her system. Her head, her head, her hand had been bandaged, but hurt like hell. It's going to be a long night. The air was still, half a brain away, watching a spot on the ceiling. Click, 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 click. Alice awoke. The door was closing, yet no lock. Click. Looking down, she realized the the bets had been united. Tap, 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 blasted the crow, turning to see it. Cheshire tapping a claw on the barred glass. Cheshire evaporated and landing sitting up on the bed. Do you really think they're not watching? Little with a grin on her face, like a mouse in a maze, jetting out the door. The floors had become checkerboards, turning to walk over the doors. A barrier opened, pushing her a few feet back. A wooden horsehead hammer appeared floating at the checkered border. Alice walked over, taking the hammer for a better view. The head the head harness had a inscription, hobby horse. Well, I guess this means I'm a knight, she thought to herself, stepping on the board back on the board black first. The horse began to breathe fire out of its nostrils and mouth. Walking out, she learned she wasn't bound by any chess movements. The chess pieces were white, black, red, and glass, and the asylum attendants were wearing the costumes, the same faces over and over, tall, short, twisted. As she stepped in an attack space for the bishop, it charged, slashing itself at her as she rolled away, landing in the target range of a queen. She pulled out the pepper shooter, blasting the stone costume of the figures. The king bare the face of the doctor, screaming its orders to the multicolored pieces. The hobby horse was as devastating as the pepper shooter. There was broken pieces all over the floor. Wow, a small, high-pitched voice. You're so lucky. Do you know how many teeth you have here? Enough to evolve 2 weapons, at least twice. A little mushroom patch had grown off one of the piles of rubber. Would you trade? Would you trade me for 2 upgrades? Do you have 2 weapons, or do you need a specific artillery? Yes, no, wait. Pepper shooter became a marble max, just as fast as the shooter had turned 300 shots every 20 seconds. That's a very special weapon. It maintains during all dimension shifts, and the hobby horse became a unicorn max, able to break the bad out of anything it hits, only appears when needed. Well, Miss Lady, enjoy being passed by a number of toadstools with chisels taking their payment. Squeaky wheels rolled in the distance. They appeared to be moving closer through the maze of corridors. She sped up her pace, heading to the first unlocked door. Inside was a box full of switches, knobs, and gags as a hole in the hole. It looked like a wooden metal man. She looked across the device and found a turn key. With 3 turns, the man began to wobble, moving its arm and legs. Ahoy! Hello, little girl. My service is at your leisure. The door slammed open, and a pack of scary masked, shiny dressed people with wheels instead of hands at her feet. Ah, girl, come here, girl. Yes, hey, come here. Yeah, girl. The horde bellowed. Alice, you're out of the marble, Max, smashing the marbles through their disgusting persona. The metal soldiers grabbed one of the wheelers, throwing him into 3 or 4 others. Alice pulled out the hobby horse, sideswiping one of them into the wall, crashing back into a hospital attendant and a roller bed. It didn't take long while the little toad sprang up from a new patch of mushrooms. I'll give you an upgrade for these teeth. Alice looked at the soldier. Oh, well, sure. Hold on, little girl, the metal man interrupted. My body is too old to serve you properly. Take my turnkey. If you stab it into a male, they'll twist and they'll become a plastic wind-up toy. If you put it in a female, they'll become a jack-in-the-box that, when opened, launches its doll head high into the air. You can have her upgrade it. Surely it'll be used more used to you than I will. Yes, okay, Toad pronounced. Once upgraded, you turn your key. Once one upgrade to turn your key, becoming a wind-up tool. You will be able to turn anything on. Who? Wow, thanks. You're really good at this. Suddenly, the floor began to lower like an enormous elevator. Oh, we shouldn't be here, the toad shuddered in its voice. Alice, please, you must say something. Anything. And until I say it's okay. The sane are not allowed to traverse here. This is a place where the sun and moon reside. It was a long trip down. Surely we're not headed to the Mediterranean, she thought to herself. The walls lifted to reveal a huge cave. She thought to herself. The walls, oh, she thought to herself. The Mediterranean, she thought to herself, lifted to a huge cave city. People floated by, reading books. They must have had devil in them. Some sat on benches, pressing some small black thing. It was quite unusual. The sun itself, made in stone, caves seemed transparent, nestled in the mosaic. The moon must be out. The buildings were tragically deserted. Pains to kings detained. Written words of all languages floated by occasionally, as did schools of fish. There was a light sprinkle in the air, like a sun shower. It was hot. The water only made things worse. Hey, where her a low voice clearly. The gate of earth. This'll lead true to safety. On the other side of this gate was a dark forest. You can talk again, Alice. Thank you. Oh, yes, this is much safer. I know exactly where we are. The Hatter doesn't live far from here. Yes, but this, but haste, seeds, but yes, but to, they have ceased to twinkle a number of days. Many people don't like the smell of it. Smoke crept in out of nowhere and filled the area with a thick vengeance. You must stop following the impertinent girl. Toad, yes, draws too much attention to herself, unexcusable attention. Alice was standing under an enormous mushroom patch with a happy smoking caterpillar. Who are you? It's me. No, you're not me. You're Alice. Then why do you always ask me? Stupid girl, puffing the tube and hiccuping bubbles and smoke. You should always introduce yourself first. Then why don't you? But you're the guest. Alice was stunned. I don't have time for this doodle. Toad came. The toad shook found, quietly followed, and disappeared with a path of smoke. And once again, Alice was alone. She got a strange feeling as she walked, a happy, uplifting feeling. When the sky and ground boomed, ground and trees fell through the soil, Wonderland was being devoured. It was truly a treacherous walk, never knowing what would trigger the next cave-in. When she remembered her unicorn max, she summoned all in all I need to do is hit the ground and unlock the unsolid land. So she crashed the hobby horse down. The crumbling crash came to a halt. It it held this realm's surface when space crackled deep below her, tearing all the way to the surface, unleashed carbon engine destroyers, poisonous, polluted creatures that need fuel for their fires. They will eat anyone that moved too close. Smoke so stretched out their backs. Smoke silos stretched out their backs, firing burning cinders out of everywhere. The marbles were little use. The gun would overheat before the smog beasts was dead. It was a bad situation. Quick, get in my shell, shouted the tiny snail near her feet. But how? Closing your eyes will hold you in my shell. Please don't open them until we arrive. Arrive, Alice blurted. You're a snail, one of the slowest animals on the planet. Yes. Well, we're not on your planet anymore. Anyway, this this majesty has held off your return and has summoned you to the court. I suppose the White King won't be that bad. They travel a long way to approach the castle, like a bath on a hot day. The king's stone door badly the king's stone door body had disgratefully away, only leaving him most of his face. You vile villain, why have you returned to Wonderland? You destroyed my castle with that abomination of a soulless dot 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 thing inside of you. But you're too old, and you're still a human body, I see. Tisk tisk. You are not so different that you don't need to evolve like the rest of us. Madness is the key for self-expression, even if we eschew forward. You're circling down the drain and losing everything, every memory you've ever had. Those weapons will only prolong the inevitable. You must travel underworld, back to your underworld where there isn't the problem. This is where you should stay until there's only one of you again. It's not safe with you, her. It's not safe with you, her. Alice. The White Queen called quickly. Alice followed the White Rabbit. That's my mom's voice. Alice noticed the Queen reflecting out the glass, pointing towards the White Rabbit. Little ran out away from the kingdom. Deedledee came up behind her, the Queen on the other side, fade to black. Deedledum arrived to work early. He walked past the front desk, down the usual junction to the kitchen. The locker room was in the back. He grabbed his broom and headed to work. Passing 6B, he peeked inside. Alice was passed out in the restraints, and the mother was dead on the floor. The doctor smacked Dee Dee so hard, Dum fell to the floor. They feel each other's pain, so he thinks. Are you cousins? Now, shover. Now, shave your head bald. It's time we enter the next phase of medication. You're such a hard case, child. She will also be placed in a straitjacket from here on, except for her bathing once every other day. Dum sat at the window as the doctor turned towards him. Dum, get in here. Clean up the hair. I have to go. Retrieved the constable. Alice was dead to the world. She didn't move once during the shaving. Dum sat there quietly, dusting her off. Deep in REM, Alice flashed. Everyone was asleep. The house was dark. What's that rustling? Is that a man's voice? 13-year-old Alice stood up and walked down the hall toward the sound. The door was locked, but doors are never, and Alice felt detached over. Rough night, sweetie. Hatter. Life busted into her face. Oh, it's you. Oh, it's not you. It is you. But, no, I don't believe. I'm him. Either tell me what you remember from the last night. Last night, realizing she was in a straitjacket, she exploded into tantrum. Why am I in this bloody thing? Get it off, get it off. She had remain she had rummaged herself back, dazzled when from deep within her gut a great split. Ah! She screamed, roared high and long. Arms ripped out of her side, then the head and legs, then tail came bellowing through. Alice went through the roof, the Jabberwocky. But Alice, the Cheshire Cat using the damned doctor's voice again. Are you going to just sit there and be its host? The red became white, and Alice pulled herself out of the feline dragon's body, making sure to pass the vorpal blade on the way out, where she cleaved the beast's head up clean off. A half hour later, the detective walked into Alice Little's 26-year-old. Seems of sound mind, but I'll be needing as much as you have, Dr. McCary. Alice is a very special girl. She doesn't belong in a public place where they're in force. Besides, Alice Little isn't dangerous to keep in contact, is too dangerous to keep in contact with conflicted population, conflicted population of inmates. Alice has had 5 incidences in the last 4 years. She dot dot dot. Hold on, you just told me she's only been out of the coma for 3 years. Her steady act increased over the last 4 years before she woke. But the point is that she was but the point is that was dealing with the same 6 people in a caring way. If you throw her into a place where she deals with hundreds a day, yes, the detective inquisiated. Well, that may be so. I can't believe that. His attention is too mouse haired assistant. I want you to go with the doctor. Get a list of all the staff that was in these walls last night. Today is the day before. I'm going to B6B, for a closed examination of the body. Come, Thompson, the carrier of the group, grabbing his large briefcase. We're talking to everyone. This Alice has been a thorn in my side for too long. Was the He was the lead investigator of the Little family home fire. Long way. The English countryside was beautiful this time of year. The detective sat quietly listening to the sound of the tracks in black and white film under his seat with his 2 assistants. Sir, the petite blonde wearing glass had a notebook. How did you come across this missing person case? My mother drinks tea with the subject's mother. She was last seen 3 days ago, going to Rutledge Asylum to visit her daughter. Sad story. The family's been through a lot. A familiar voice caught the ear. The snail stood before her. Alice, long ago you fought along with the White Queen. The smog has reached the outermost door. The paper playing card are no match for the infected souls. You will need this. The hobby horse head hammer became red. My unicorn max would have been more than suitable to knock anything back off. Yes, but the unicorn max can't be used at any other size. Now, don't you fear, since you have all 3 upgrades. For the hobby horse, it has become interchangeable. Alice grabbed the upgrade. Grabbed the upgrade. Flaming black eyes, nostrils, and mane. She automatically lifted it into the air. Ha ha ha, it's kinda like standing, swinging it around as she walked herself around the air. Okay, good, in we go. Then chairs became the size of skyscrapers, and the sand bigger than mountains. The ground swelling up around her floated her into the realm between the short colors of here and the spheres of transparent concords. The snail had inverted a rainbow koi fish this way. Would the two-dimensional world was translucent. The cards ran in line, spears, flags, and trumpets. The smog's black fire destroyer they destroyers they walked on metal hands and on legs like a half man, half dog. Along the cracking lines they follow. The surface, land, up, down, sideways, running all along the mountain's cracked walls, causing each other. The red hobby horse allowed Alice to cheat in all respects, not bound to the cracks. She slammed through the smug, turning them into bubbles, bubbling masses that dissipate until it flashed out with a smoke. Alice, so she hit it, and a bubbling mass and puffed to get gone. Alice, not knowing how this had worked, soared high over her target, grouping of four smog and combined forming a monster, mostly fast bastard. She switched to time pepper shooter, blasting the beast into flaming heat. It screamed in rage, charging, attacking everywhere, scratching its own kind on fire, catching its own kind on fire. The koi collected all the cards it could when another four combined right in front of her, blurping, broken into beasts' backs into the four original smog. There has a lot of cards to collect when all they are trying to do is attack and protect their heads. Suddenly, the distance a war drum began to beat. The chess pieces formed rank behind the pawn guardians. Weapons and bodies filled the cracks of oil. Infected card zombies were everywhere. Every everything. Oh, infected card zombies, everything beginning to quake like a geyser. Smug spewed out of the cracks. There the creatures forged into a big mobile fortress. It must have been as big as an American redwood without the six legs. It fired out dozens of small destroyers at an alarming rate. They infected everything. Chess became the chess pieces became the combined four. A long while to bring the fortress down. But it was the silent had returned to the old door. Thank you, Alice. No species deserves to be infected. Very impressive. A revealed man approached. Hoi Koi. Van Dyke tipped his hat, causing all the casino games he's carrying to crash into themselves. Are you like one of those man band? Oh no, not in a long time, dearie. Today, I'm a walking casino. I take teeth back to the toad for my props. Can I play a game or two? Alice pleaded. Well, you are old enough. But nope, sorry, out of order. Hey, come on, just one at least. Okay, you got me. Go ahead, place your bet. Bring in. I can't believe you won. A rare. Maybe I should get my gear checked out. Can't win and expect not to pay a little. Here you go. Alice looked at the butcher knife. Scary. Looking at the seemingly harmless man. Don't give me that look. I'm in your dream. So don't worry. You can't play more next time. But I must go. Oh, I learned the smog had breached the mine, the innerland border 2 weeks ago, undetected. They have been laying siege to the mushroom patches. They created more walking fortresses by infecting the toads because they live, unlike the paper or stone. I bid thee adieu, and snail, stay alert. The cats are on the prowl. Grasshoppers, but their way. No, no reply, but the time Alice looked back towards Van Dyke, he was evaporated. The koi gave Alice a nod and then closed its eyes, and Viralscape blurred, and like an elevator, they grew back to their original states before they shrank. When the familiar tears released the Jabberwocky again, taking longer to get out this time. Arr, Little growled. Right in, right. I'll take your ass for that. She screamed as he became fast to focus, fast to faces with her. She screamed as he came face to face with her. Yes, she grabbed it, serpent tongue, and removed it with the butcher knife. Now she smiled, gesturing the tongue as it pulled it from the sword sheath. Vorpal, my friend, awaken. Her arm whipped the tongue into the silver cleaver that hurled that hurt the son of a bitch. Alice. Alice threw the cleaver into the dirt, stabbing the turnkey into her side. That into her side. You think you taught enough? As the turning knob clicked, the more gigantic white and black dodo, soaring into the air, beak and talons crashed. The Jabberwocky blasted its fire breath, catching her wings on fire, causing her to crash. But out from the death roll, Alice morphed to a bandersnatch, not giving the feline dragon time to recover. The velocity sent chills ever down flower around. White fuzzing began interfering with her eyes. She felt the air flip from foggy moving sideways in a carriage, like a slow flashing strobe light. The ghost image of her against the wall, spinning around the center of the room, slashing, fang, dizzy dragon, fade to ash. White hot streak, headaches getting worse. The thud at the shook of the descent having her stomach. Dry heave. Ack. Dry heave. The wall stopped moving. D-Dum disconnected the bed from the wall. As D-Dum checked, her eyes dilated. D flipped the clamp, causing the bed to fall horizontal. If Dum wasn't there, she would have slammed hard. The dark realm of the REM sleep hold many foundations and balconies, freezing cold, orange shimmering snow. Her father running through in front of the door as 13-year-old Alice comes running around the house. Her mother waited, sad-eyed, hand over mouth, to Alice scream nose. No, held her hand over mouth and nose. Alice screamed, "Daddy, no!" Fire seeped out over the whole of the house, turning black and white to just black, to stairs, thumped from the downstairs. Dum, Dum awoke to Alice's disappearing out of the door. Running, he kept his distance, watching. When did she change clothes? Alice was wearing a black overall dress with long black and white stripes, arm sleeves, and pigtails. The dust on the dungeon concrete structure chipped and rubbled the rock with the approach of two Goliath horses pulling a traveling theater emporium. Mr. Nix lit his guitar. Well, now there's is no one of the rarest and the forbidden fruit. Alice Little, my honor. Alice looked over the black overcoat, suit, bow tie, hat, and the thin, curly, red-haired and sweaty forehead. His gloves takes off the napkin out of his suit pocket, patting his forehead. You're quite an intimidating force of nature, aren't you? Whatever do you mean? You're the underdog. I, the unrealized hero. Justified innocence. Nothing again. You can't defeat you. And when the dream ends, you'll be free. The instantly truly has no hold on you anymore, does it? Alice fell silent. I'm sorry now. I don't mean to offend. And turning his legs out of the the steer seat, his well-polished shoes, and smacked the side of the oddly decorated carriage of tricks and banners, and such a chair appeared to her side. Alice nodded, not sitting down. The red curtain slid from under the dream emporium and the 19th century Western piano began playing to the paper puppet bar scene. The drunk falling over the stool, the bar, poker game, brothel girls dancing in the upstairs railings. Alice was amused when three old boys sitting at the table began standing up. You're a liar. I'm me. Bullshit. I've always been me. Stop making fun of me. The third one screaming jumped in over the table on the other two. Alice was inside the bar. Chairs flew past her head. Beer bottles crashed everywhere. Alice, if you play, the crowd will settle. There, standing on the piano, was a 2 foot tall red devil wearing a gray and black pinstriped suit and a black with diamonds and silver tie. His sharp teeth sat perfectly together in his smile. Playing for us, little? Play for us, Alice? As he leaped to the ground, it will grant you a power greater than your hobby horse. Another bottle flew past her head. Do you think my faith so little? Blasting him with the unicorn mask, turning around, she headed out the door to the cool London street. The air was dark and moist, and she woke up to find sidewalk double-decker bus driving 150 miles per hour, stopping on a dime. The door slid open. In front of her, all aboard, Miss Little. The chap was wearing a bellhop outfit that was too small. What I took to the what I took it to the dryers. Alice looked at his hands so he could help her on. Instead, she whisked her. Inside she whisked was in an enormous rectangular room with a bar and a disco ball hanging in the center. Two people were making out in the flurry bean bags. She went over to the bar. Give me a refreshing beverage, she asked the tender. Here, man, I got just a thing She never heard a Jamaican accent. A man wearing a long gray nightgown. The sleeve the sleeves were too long, had stars on his slippers, and the one he's extra long striped neck cap, though he walked with the muscle duck gold knobbed cane, which stood right as he sat, a few stools from him. Hello, this is your first time in the sleeper bus, Alice took a sip of the fresh pop. She was the size of a cup, standing at the door. I hiccup and don't I hiccup, don't bubble. I believe so, hiccup taking another sip, growing till crunch and growing till crunch Indian style against the roof. Hiccup, the bus shook. Alice looked out the window. The world was multicolored streaking as she now hiccuped herself to the next size. What's a sleeper bus? A place to dream. A place in an equinox between La La Land and Slumberland. Two of the underlands, plateaus. What is the underland I keep hearing of? It's inside your head, little girl. And Wonderland isn't. He smiled. You're fast. Trust me. The biggest lie in the universe is that all relative, is that it's all relative. How interesting. It's our differences that make the universe strong. You're avoiding the question. Wonderland is the dream of the earth. You're Gaia, or for some unknown storyteller who knows such things, Alice placed the bottle in her apron, apron's front pocket. Trust me. Go upstairs and learn what you need. Alice walked to the back of the bus, passing the four stall shower, and up the stairs. She came to a dock in a realm of stars and growing clouds circled, filling the distance. She walked with the one she walked with the wonder again. Koi fish to a few clouds, forming stars, and stepped up to the boat. Ahoy, Captain. May we come aboard? A green, white striped beach hat. Oh ho ho ho, Alice, son, come aboard. It's my pleasure. The ship was about 35, with a huge wind goddess statue under with deer antlers, holding up the huge sails close to the port side of the high deck, over the galley, under the ceramic gowns. I am Uhara, an, an artillery candy shop owner. Welcome. He heads to the seating wheel and pulled the lever back. The arms open, relaxing the fold, and the sails lifting the boat away from the dock. Uhara shifted gears, and the goddess statue began to blow the sails. The deck had Persian rugs. They had soared around the smiley faced stars that were 2 times the size of the ship. The clouds were unconnected by bridges. Stone monument ruins filled the top of the cloud masses. She walked to the edge of the deck and rested her arms on the rail. Dozens of boats were a partying armada in the dreamscape bubbles. When a disc shape caught her attention, a small island saw pulled up next to the boat, only about half its size and length. A crescent moon shape of the fake mountain circled most of the outer edge, leaving a fiery spot for a pool of water, and a beach. In the center was a tripod marked with animals and lush green hills side slope. A murderer, the tree. There was a short, chubby black Arabian near a fire on the beach, who nods when out of the teepee, cough, coughing, sparkled smoke floating, thin tribal man with a big circle of white Santa beard and a glasses. He wore a headpiece, and that the headpiece that resembled a mix of a Mayan sun and feather Indian chieftain branded with the words environment likeness tapestry sewn into his body. He took one look at Alice, laughed happily to himself, murmured to himself, and gave her a peace sign. She looked back and forth like the guest at the tournament. She looked back and forth like at a tennis tournament. Is that it? Harda turned the boat around and said, now he takes what he gathered and goes on a trek 24 hours. Tomorrow you will learn what you need. Alice turned to Hara, who peacefully waved at her. A huge cane moved around her and pulled her butt out of the dream emporium, tossing her out of a huge bush wall labyrinth. She rolled backwards through a thump and cracked into the other wall. The leaves were high and the alley was dark. Pepper! Shouted to the moon. A scampering caught her ear, and a small dark figure, a rat, about 21 inches standing, walked along the edge of the maze. Good Eye gazed at her. Its good eye gazed at her, and turned the corner, and approached the rose bush. Tell her Majesty the impostor has returned. The roses askewed, becoming a bushel of people shapes. Oh no, Alice. Alice has returned. Tell the Queen of Hearts. The willow whispers are fast to deliver her memory to the next. My word, Nicodemus, Alice is here. Good heavens, Alice, the checkerboard chess symbol dressed heavy figure, angry Queen of Hearts. The girl who says she is the Red Queen dares to come back to His Majesty's order. Off with her head, the rabbit puts on his top hat and pulls out a pair of scissors, hopping down the bunny trail. Too many corners to court, not knowing a destination, and Hatter came in from the darkness. The sky fell below them, looking like up on a inferno jet stream, slewing across the air, silent. Hatter, what happened to your arm and legs and hat? Alice, filled. Alice, find my parts, put them into the chain. They'll bring them to me. Something disrupts the force. There's something coming out, floating to nothing. Scissors glare out from the walls. Leaves begin crying. But the doll rabbit, Alice, is the executioner, blowing a whistle to the clouds, as if a chain swing lowers. As Hatter grabbed the chain and pulled it faster. Alice grabbed this. The argument has already began. Arguing. With haste, the rabbit hopped into the Hatter's only hand and cut it off the Hatter's head. Don't worry about me. Find my parts, Alice. Watch him as the chain lifted her into the air. You know, come to think of it, Mr. Nix had a voice that sounded like the Hatter's. Exiting the clouds, they stepped out into the train station. All types seeked passage. The Sahek soldiers, Furian clown traditionally uniformed by type, stood firm, maintaining order. For the gnome of the diamonds and healthy blue caterpillar with the neon markings of the Furian poured on a couple of wheelers, throwing them against the wall. The train wasn't too much of a the train wasn't too much of a weight. Calm, coy morphed snail on shader, and the doors opened and tickets. But I have no tickets. Oh, Alice, it's you. Your room is 6B. The door unlocked. She walked past the Red Knight, who had already moved to the next. Tickets. 6B. Why? Does that sound familiar? Little thought to herself. Alice wearing the costume blue dress as she walked down the train cars and into the dining car. Mouse sitting at the table by herself. Hello, Mrs. Mouse. Twinkle snipped her tea. The tables were packed. The walrus sat with the carpenter eating oysters. The bread and butter, or cracker, or Tabasco, and another table sat a lobster who spoke to a porpoise with the doctor's voice. I never say past 80 o'clock. My turn, my train leaves at 8:45, of course. Alice, the tea mouth, seemed distant. Have you seen the Hatter? Alice neglected to mention his condition in the labyrinth. Why, he told me to give you this tea kettle. It is a powerful ally. Thank you, Miss Tea Mouse. Twinkle. Alice walked down the alley. Alice walked down the hall car to car and came upon 6B. She opened the door to a regular looking train cabin. Two bench seats across from themselves. The snail jumped off her shoulder to the seat next to her. What is this tea kettle? It a very heartfelt technology if you can evolve it to the third upgrade. But that can only be done if you gain an appointment with Nicodemus. The rats live in the rose bush. Show yourself, cat, the snail commanded. Being in the snail's skin, it was a tank versus an earthbound cat. Then on the bench across devaporated, sitting up in a football-headed shaped, thin red cat. Hail, coy, unpredictable as always, I see. Meanwhile, deep down above the surface, the caterpillar's arm est under the dayward sun to sleeping moon. Alice has become a liability. She's coming, she goes as she pleases. She draws too much attention to our wonderland. The mustache man caterpillar wearing blue uniform clears his throat. Real crazy, she's tainted the earth. The the cause of the probably the cause of the carbon engine destroyer strains. If I may, Cheshire Puss, using hoops using hoops of floats down on the slivers of smoke, evaporating on a shadowed tree branch at the edge of the mushroom patch. Alice is one of us. We can't deny that. The caterpillar all waited. The mustache man blue cartoon neon furion. This is 2 second live action American Butterfly. Yes, but we can't forget the first Disney caterpillar. We can't restore memories we know nothing about. I will see the bull-fighting butterfly, said and sped off. That same morning, the detective walked, called a meeting with his 2 assistants and the doctor. The doctor was fast to show Kathy Little's signature signed out 2 days ago. But the film became sketchy and turns black and white. Indeed, a list of the signatures till today, me and Miss Theory will be going over Miss Little's case study. Had her pieces still missing, has a zombie mouse and hair restrained on a surgical table, looking from his decapitated head. His body crawls up after tossing up some equipment. It crawled into position. Don't worry, my friend. I'm just checking your stuffing. As the body angled so the head can hold up a scalpel, clock ticking downward. Alice stepped off the train wearing the brightest pink dress with bulbous white shoulders under him. Well, Toad, I guess we're in the same carnage. I guess we're not in Kansas anymore. Looked down at the snail. She walked out of the grassy. His land like seemed to wobble as she stepped. The sky was bright blue with huge white clouds winding around ribbon paths with checkerboards underside and top, where shrubs and trees and grass were all sorts of strangeness. Gearwork, chains, and clocks, accompanied by the floating island, land masses spread out around Wonderland. Remembering Alice, the red cat evaporated, captured a caterpillar. They are the chisel against the smog. A pack of 4 combined engine plants outflanked the mushroom patch and found 2 toadstools and a spade playing card. They were easily overkilled, becoming 2 more smog engine and a zombie card, who instantly head back to the destroyer card, carbon engine, black hole metal legs, steam pipe, cinder blast, black fire sitting infect. It's even infectious to write, and a degenerative disease. The light of the flickered down the door, kind of wooden door, where a shadow tress with a strange eye peering from the madness. Watch a bald girl wearing a half untied straitjacket under feet strapped through an inch of water covering the floor. The eye made strange noises, as if from the nothing. I am hunger. I ate 1,000 times and not feel my need. I can drink the whole ocean and not quench my thirst. She had the strangest afterimage in her step. She was from one side of the wall to the next. The caterpillar exiting opened his exiting the snail ultrasonic skin. The blue caterpillar, son of a bitch, went to the fucking that one too. Exiting the snail ultrasonic. What are you gonna do with me? Cat, show yourself. The snail shifted. Cat, why you dirty? You right, do it. Oh, it's easy enough. Just climb on its back and say, interrogate. Alice didn't hesitate. She jumped onto the blue cartoon back. This will defect. This will defeat them, right? Indeed, never showing its face. Integrate. The caterpillar lines began to shine, morph into a robotic caterpillar whose back opened up and absorbed Alice and her pink dress. The Hatter was awkward. It was an awkward guest appearance by rabbits hopping on the road, who was obliged, stopped, and nod down, looking to his pockets, to his pocket watch. It moves his hat, rubbed his head, and departs up the chain of leaf. A leaf cracked as the rabbit climbed high. The rats of Nim pulled back the little tea mouse. No sigh. A serpent scent in the mist. Let it go. Medusa the witch, with enchanted dead blood, venomous snake shadow, who uses the force to manipulate and hold the key light bulb. Shadows and a jet speed conveyor belt for her toxins. Did Alice receive the tea kettle? The enormous rat stood up on 2 feet looking towards the little mouse. Oh yes, I did what was required. The one-eyed rat, Brutus, had flash-stepped stance up on the path of the executioner. Find and tell Nicodemus. The glare spliced the leaf darting out of the shrub scissors first at the robotic caterpillar, transformed from cannon to Shell Max metal shield, unlocking back as it looks to the rabbit, furring its silent, puts blasting hair right off the stuffed rabbit creature. The scissors took their toll on the caterpillar, which began fidgeting like about to fall apart. Tear, a furious vector of red, sear, the rabbit shattered to ash, leaving only 2 button eyes on the pair of dark black crystal scissors. The caterpillar pulled Alice out of the back and convulsing, began convulsing, put out of the back and became nearly split into the jigsaw puzzle, when all of a sudden the metal plates split down the center, letting free a grasshopper that looked like a Grinch, who vanished in the grasses. Are you okay, Alisama? Uda was over. O'Hara was over to her in a flash, dusting her off. That was very exciting, smiled the black kimono man with a white shorts and a hat vertical lines, stripes. He held a Corman had a straight goat beard and wore particular box shoes. Alice pushed him off. What are you doing here? A malevolent soul asked me to protect you until it's finished. Making a swig of sake, he offered her some. After he swigged, O'Hara smiled the breeze, good in a low voice. Death to walk about. Everything was desperate by morning. Come, we mustn't go. The ground quaked. I felt this before. Everyone ran. Ah, the dead blood sword scurried in the hole from out of the ground. Corona was a boy, no more than 15. His pink hair was messy and black, dressed out of the tight. The sword had lips and talked too much shit. And as Corona was split, her back bled, still shot out of some picks, and sword hurts real bad. Corona's as hard as a thimble, but kept saying he couldn't handle this mess. Why are you invading my space? As a lot to be said. Come but a few, there was something wrong with that attacking those souls. A fair aboard friendship. Your mother will scold you, and I'll tell her myself. You just wait, and she'll tell me, punish you again. He 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 he. The sword pulled Corona's head, stabbing O'Hara in the chest, releasing blood everywhere. Alice, if you call them my sword, they will teach you. She sat in the black Swen Bally outfit, and O'Hara's body turned to dust, letting the hat fly out into the stratosphere. The swords screeched, would have sheared Alice's arm if the door guardian Brutus hadn't pushed her out of the way. The force made Alice dizzy, slinging hot visions, pulled out of her the hobby horse, but had the thing stuck in random flipping over to had been shooting marble. They ricocheted everything. 3 more rats appeared as Alice called Inhibit and Truth unlocked flash forward in her head, loaded even. She learned everything about her in her twin black blades in different length and red twist threads on the bottom of the bundle. She now had everything. There, there is a multiplication. The cheer with two different swords. The grasshopper was defenseless against the red cat's whiskers. The cat played with its food for a while, then picked it up by its back and placed it in front of the red football head-shaped cat. I do love grasshoppers, and this pocket can hold as many as I want. I can even feed you looking inside the pocket with the grasshoppers. Don't I, boys? Letting it fall in the hole, resealing. Alice yelled. Nicodemus, the oldest of the rats, pulled his head out of the tea kettle. She looked up and caught a red stone crystal and placed it on the tea kettle. The top and spout blasted onto position, flipping the top in the air and looking down with a new evolution. She turned the flamethrower toward the demonic sword. Ah, it screamed. Don't you care about the child? No child, no threat. The viciousness was unholy. What the poor reacted hatter witnessed, and he'll hopefully never remember. The pan soared across the scene, slamming into the kid's head. Hey, no fear. Why is everyone joining your side? Corona grabbed the sword with both hands to give extra power. Had her fully together, standing 9 foot tall. So when he kicked the kid, the sword dropped. Had her, you're healed. Thank heavens. Running over, giving his leg a hug. How you did it? Who did it? Miss Pepper had realized we had been ratcheted miscorrectly. My mind's in two sometimes. Or is there a switch in the back of the hard heads? Alice began throwing up blood and teeth. She sat like a doll alone in the dilapidated home. The doctor sat there smoking his pipe, reading the newspaper. Alice looked up to her side to find an exiting replica of her just 1/3 under her size. They were both wearing the same blue and white dress, which she, around the back, had brought up 2 jars. Taking a closer look, toenails and teeth. She opened the cap and wiping the blood off the new teeth with her dress. The room burst into flames. Her mother and father looked at he from the burning picture on the wall near the candle. I have to escape. She stood up in the hospital clothes and ran to the locked door. A key, I need a key. I need to get my pendulum. Dumb sat there at the other side of the door, stood up and unlocked it. 6B never even looked to see who unlocked it. She never does. Zombie hospital attendant walked freely among the corners, paying her no mind. So too slow to freight. Their bodies were torn and hanging off its rotting muscles. Alice entered the deputy's room while he was asleep. and stole his police report. Dumb pricked her with a shot, took her back in the notes, back to her room. If there was any suspicion too over dramatic, he could just return them, leaving Alice to believe it was only a dream. For all I knew, she might think she still has it. Alice, wearing her nightie, ran down the stairs of her old home. Key. Something wrong. The doors are never locked. The dream happened in a flash when the scary figure came past her door before she woke. The doctor's cigar smoke retaining her in the place she was. Two dolls with his two jars in front of her sitting on a pile of blood. Outside the wall, a snake jumped into a dog's mouth. Then a little girl walking with her mother finds a dog. Leave it be, Lessie, her mother said, turning her eyes away as the shadow of the snake jumped off from the dog to the little girl. Yes, my pet. Maybe look at the sister down there, pointing down. The black snake marking slithered around from the shoulder to Medusa's hand. She sat on the moon's light, resting her room. Are they seriously saying you think you're sane? The voice came from the wall above her head. A little girl in black hoodie rattled vapors in the grass. Her eyes slowly wandered around the streams of smoke along the roof. How old are you? The doctor's head. Alice, speak. 5. No, You can't go around becoming anyone you want, you see, whispering the possessed child. The doctor stood up, rolled his newspaper into a bat, and smacked the child in the head. I mean literally. That you guys in the bad suit stood up, and Pop walked right in through the wall behind her bed, right behind her bed, right behind Pop, and walked right through the walls behind her bedboard. That ought to do it. Walking back to his chair and continuing his coffee. Aren't you having any, Alice? Never looking up, said the gnome. His face became stone, like spear and a great mountain wall, and can consume the room, becoming a cave. His voice now boomed. You'd better be on your way. Tea time is over, and the caucus race isn't to be taken lightly, at least not when two caterpillars have entered, especially for you, my dear. He 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 he. Alice watched the rock open like a mouth to door and darted out. The stairs went up, down, sideways, and the sideways, inside down, and upside down. And I'm sure everywhere, and in sometimes. The rooster went one way, the doodle the next. A porcupine rolled about, followed by a long-legged bird. Hatter dived in so fast Alice felt the floor, sending the butterfly into a death roll. Alice, run. Time slow to stop. My dear girl, you're getting old. Chesapus, you are my dear. Hatter. Hatter won't last long against the Evo. And this tidy growing caterpillar here is a Furion, one of the gnomes' Hexsphere soldiers. This isn't much I can do for you, except this. It's a vial of my blood. Drink it, and no creature under inner, outer wonder, or any other land will match you until you earn what you have forgotten. Chesapus had appeared right in front of her face and blew her in the mouth. Alice, my dear, you now have all the abilities of a land-bound cat, including the 9 lives. Then it evaporated away. I looked. I, I will jump. I will jump if I. ... Dot dot dot. Alice felt time working, began moving. The Furion was really mad. Alice jumped over its head, hitting it with the unicorn max. It barely flinched. She tried everything. The damn caterpillar even used the shell to break her wind-up key back down to its original form. Well, tough artifact, the koi said as it soared past Alice, burping him into dizzy spells. Breaking usually means broke. Alice closed her eyes. But what about Hatter? I can only hold one at a time. Don't fear, this is what Hatter does. Hatter's arm flew across the sparkling cave. He reached behind and unrolled 3 or 4 rolls of fabric covering the butterfly-like avalanche. The bet they bet he'll they they bet the hell out of each other, but the butterfly was no match for the Hatter's perfume. The Chesapus arrived right behind the snail and Alice. They sat at a table in the desert, dining deep in the Maro lands. Then abruptly they fell silent and disappeared. A griffin walked past her and found a seat and placed his bag on the table, opened it, and the turtle climbed out as he was brought out of a bowl and a silverware. My dear, do you have any chance to have a tea kettle? She looked around. Me? Yes, actually, pulling out the flame kettle. No, this will not do. Crumbling up, morphing to a hippogumi kettle, pouring the mere goo. Now we have something that are handing it back to Alice. That, my lady, do you know what a lobster is doing on a train with a porpoise? Won't the porpoise explain itself? Said the turtle. Ahem. Yes, well, but the porpoise is already waiting. Perhaps you should go find out, Alice whispered as she put the turtle in the bowl. As he put the turtle in the bowl and closed the lid. Alice awoke in the room. Good you're awake. Dump stood up from the corner. Indeed, to be sure you wouldn't get worse from what you learned. but that where everything went bad. The police file has your other case report about the fire. Wait, what police? You've already had an interview with the detective and the female assistant. Decide. I decided going this far, I might as well go all the way. So I got the doctor's case study notes. Alice, you don't really think you were in a coma, do you? There's something very wrong with this whole thing. Deedle Dum, I told you. I told and told you. Deedle Dee cried over. Band nude broken violin. Nah, Deedle Dee screamed. Baha Deedle Dum replied. There's something wrong with your father. He's writing lies in her history. Don't talk badly about my dad, you idiot. They tore into each other. Dumb. More trying to stop his cousin. Stop. Please stop, Deedle Dee. Deedle Dum killed Deedle Dee that very night. They ran down the hall when a low jazz band hit the blues ahead. They turned to the corner to find a little red devil snapping his fingers, wearing a snow-white attire and diamond fitting in his missing teeth, and pushed in the wrist like $2 million bracelets. There was a extra red line around his red pupils, which seemed to be lighter, unfocused. The big band instruments were only hats, stopping playing, and the devil put on his white round ball hat on the walking casino on the ball hat on. The walking casino appeared behind him. The newly forged table, he put on his see-through green visor. What's the game? We're not playing with your distractions. Running past the table. You stole my teeth, and I'll have yours legally. Or by ordainment. She doesn't need to put up She doesn't need to put up her own teeth. A high-pitched voice walked up. Snail pounded. I've never seen a toad without a protection of the mushroom. On my own, I've been collecting all Alice's spoils for many aisles now. She has 16,685. Impossible. She hasn't been followed for long enough. Yes, but I know teeth. I found the Bandersnatch, Jabberwocky, every type. Fine, I get it. But I'll have my... You won't wake up without my permission. Pulling out of the upper half of his suit, starting from the back of his right arm, was a upper lid back view of a piano down just under his belly button of the belly of the bench seat, and a circle flame back seat on his left. Circling around the corner view of the tattoo onto his front, where you see Alice's back playing the piano, with a little monster making an appearance on his own tattoo. Alice realized the tattoo. Alice realized the tattoo. Alice was making low sound music. Alice and Deedle Dum, used the opportunity to draw back, following a memory. Where the doctor's office. Why? Are you going? Yes, I understand. This way. Alice retrieved the little black book off his desk. By the time the devil reached the outer wall, okay, let's go. Dumb nodded. In pursuit, the beast figured it was long for them to exit out the front door, so he jet streamed to the roof and made a way down. Snail cleared the bath, reached in the front desk when as Dumb was about to push open the lever, Alice heard Miss Pepper's voice. You guys leaving early? I wish I could, but I need this job. Have a good morning. Graveyard shift ends the day in the morning. Click, click, cluck. The door shut. Click, click, the door shut. They arrived 3 on the train at 3:42 a.m. Alice tasted freedom. They sat across from each other of in the boxcar. Alice daydreamed. Dee-Dum played Humpty Dumpty chess, and the card united for the first time on that day. Alice watched herself playing along happily, roughly 8 years ago, with a half-dozen nursing assistants dressed up in costumes. Even the wall and furniture help homage, held homage to the dreamscape script. Alice thought dumb shadow image walked by the opening train door. Alice shook it off. Sleepless, the door was closed, and down was snorting fast asleep. The next morning was a bright black and white morning. The detective woke up around 10 p.m. by the mouse earned partner. Sir, Alice couldn't have killed her mother. She had a room with a window, and by the rules from the National Institute of Mental Health, she was book restrained even night from 10 p.m. from all night even from 10 p.m. Okay, I get it. So who was on duty at that time? Alice sorted through Dumb's backpack and found her big book of lies. Her case study report. I thought he said I accidentally stole the police report. She dumped the entire bag on the floor. There was nothing. Frustrated, she decided to walk the train. She opened the door and found all the passengers had been splattered where they stood. The stench of blood was as thick as the stains across the trains. Alice walked to the next car and found herself just inside the asylum wall. She tried to leave again. The young girl's voice was sad. The Red Queen had resided to the nothing. It's not your fault. The voice made her mind begin flashing visions of the wall and roof and stretched housecape. Alice sat up, dumb. The shadow was from the fire, but it was the same as dumb. Her mind tore onwards with rage. She pushed the house gate out of it and charged into the house, kicking out the door. You have never you had you have had the nerve to be mad at me. I was the only one who was helping you. I mean, really, you don't even know why the Red Queen's face was askew as the Jabberwocky You, you lost all chance for ... Sir, she squeezed the doctor's son. She squeezed the doctor's son is dead. His body in Alice's room. Both her and Needledum are missing. The stupid girl. Miss Theory, go back to the city hall and get me an arrest warrant for Alice Little and ... Alice looked at the book, remembering the purpose of the black book. 8:45 p.m. She got off the train and jumped into the one headed back. Hours passed, and as it arrived at London Station, the doors opened. Alice was relieved. Face to face, passing the doctor, his head turned around, never taking his eyes off her. Alice, what are you? You're a monster. All you save... You have no power against me. The train left without him. Alice was a mad doctor. Had the court and the petition against a mentally handicapped girl. The next train approached. I may be crazy, but you're a criminal and going to jail. That won't bring your sister back. Alice lost her mind. She was only 13, babysitting, running down the stairs to get a skeleton key out of the tiny desk at the bottom of the stairs. She opened the door to see through the opening crack. Her sister's foot being tossed into an open drawer on her dresser. She fell backwards in a petrified crawl. She ran to the room, tripped over the floor where the rabbit doll had fell as she got out of bed, jumped onto her window as she heard the sound of glass candle holders shattering near the stairs. She ran to see the father. A tear broke out of her eye. Seeing the doctor, she pushed him in front of the train. Alice felt relieved. Head in front of the train. Felt relieved out of the train station. Excuse me, Miss Little, a police officer called her over. We need you for questioning. And he escorted her to the carriage. Meanwhile, inside the station, a cat in a hat pulled up in a multi-armed cleaning car, crumbling everything and tossing it into its trash can on the trunk. The cat flipped a knob and clicked a switch, causing the two green jelly chambers holding an animal, or each one, lowered to the hood. Instantly it stood up and began wiping the other realms clean. The car had an image of a robot face on the cleaning car, of a Robotnik face on the cleaning car, license plate, and a face butt. Alice sat in the back of the police carriage, smiling, watching a paper city of moving buildings sorted around her, with people in the window cheering and wazzing tissues. Have you located the doctor? No, sir. The train had never reported seeing Dr. McCary. He's a regular passenger. Alice has been brought to custody, but do you have enough evidence to prove she killed Dr. Deedledee? Hatter looked at her. Woo woo. The train blasted down the desert with Mr. Nix at the conductor. I'm driving a stick, shifting gears while waving his hat, with the doctor screaming in the front grill of the train. Rats and him, a little bit of bleach, Cat in the Hat, um, Alice in Wonderland, Disney versions of both Alice in Wonderlands. I think the red cat was from a Nickelodeon show. Um, Wizard of Oz, Mr. Megorium's Dream Emporium, Imaginarium, the Imaginarium. Yeah, the one with Heath Ledger. This thing had everything. I did not realize that before I wrote it. But it's only a fan fiction. There's a lot going on. And I thank everyone because I wrote it when I was halfway asleep. And I didn't know if it was going to make any sense. That was kind of intense.